In terms of viability, there's a lot of overlap between Pokemon's two main formats, singles and doubles. Sadly, triples hasn't quite caught on, but maybe Game Freak will bring it back in Gen 10. Anyway, regardless of whether it's facing one or two Pokemon, Landorus Therian is of course the gold standard for how it defined both singles and VGC, followed closely by other cross-format elites like Tyranitar, Heatran, Rotom Wash, and Ferrothorn that are equally at home pretty much no matter where they are. However, singles and doubles are worlds apart in terms of strategy, and so it makes sense that certain Pokemon skill sets are more well tuned to one or the other, even beyond the more overt cases of focusing on double-specific moves like Helping Hand. So today we're going to be examining some of the Pokemon who might be excellent in one format, but just about totally fall flat in the other. These are the Pokemon that are only good in one format. But before we start, once again, this video is sponsored by Raycon. Raycon is the best in the premium audio market, and they are excited to tell you about the new Everyday Headphones. The Everyday Headphones are your perfect partner for your everyday tasks, hence the name. I use them so often whenever I want to actually enjoy these tasks by listening to audiobooks or music. Not only that, but the Everyday Headphones has an over 40-hour battery life, and even a quick charge function that yields 2 hours of battery after just charging for 15 minutes. I can literally wear these all day long. And thanks to the headphones' more advanced form of active noise canceling, hybrid active noise canceling, it keeps me extra locked in until I finish the task. In fact, Raycon has got us covered because high-quality hybrid active noise canceling headphones are very hard to find at an accessible price point. Raycon starts at just half the price as other premium audio brands. What a deal! And of course, because they're the homies, if you don't love your Raycons, they offer a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy. No questions asked. So if you want the best in premium audio and also support the channel to help us produce more content, go to buyraycon.com/FSG20 to get 20% off site-wide. And thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring this video. By virtue of the one-on-one singles format, games have the capacity to go on for some time, with a strong defensive core. The simple version is that if your wall is threatened, you just switch to another wall that takes the aggressor on. This might not work forever, but even if the wall does eventually break, it's going to take some time. That's why good defensive teams aren't just trying to sit on you forever, since that doesn't work against actual good teams used by good players. The most effective bulky squads suffocate you with passive damage as you switch around to try and break through them, constantly narrowing the window you have in which you can still win. This is feasible because in a one-on-one format, if you wall something, you wall it. This doesn't quite work so well in 2-on-2. You might completely wall something, but if its teammate on the field destroys you, that walling potential probably isn't going to get you anywhere. This isn't the case for every defensive Pokemon, of course, as there are still plenty of singles mainstays whose defensive reach is extraordinary in VGC as well, such as Amoonguss. And what else are the famous Landorus Therian and Incineroar if not Pokemon who are prized first and foremost for their aptitude to switching into what seems like everything. However, it's not just a matter of defensive reach, it's also what they do when they're actually on the field. Amoonguss' sleep is always incredible, but it's also got the phenomenal redirection capability of Rage Powder, while Landorus and Incineroar strike back at the opponent that, whether focused on offense or utility, have great immediacy in their impact, which fits the much faster pace of 2-on-2, where games often don't even reach double-digit turns. You can absolutely go defensive in VGC to solid effect. Maybe not a full-on stall teams a la singles, but you can certainly bring the bulk. You just have to strike back while doing so. It's why Landorus is unquestionably leagues ahead of the same type Gliscor in VGC, despite them often occupying similar slots in singles. Gliscor's slow burn Poison Heal Roost into Source Dance boosted endgame sweep playstyle does not translate well to the VGC world at all. It's why Toxapex, though it might strangle many an OU team through its Toxic Spikes, Haze, and Knockoff, is of almost no threat to your average VGC team. Its utility moves are not nearly as impactful as fellow Regenerator Amoonguss in a doubles contact, and its direct damage is nearly nihil. Pokemon like these walls do their best work when they can slow the game down to a crawl, while still making progress through the entry hazards that have greater impact the longer the game goes on, which is why they are so completely absent from VGC. Skarmory may be great at taking hits, but its direct damage is close to nihil. It excels when it can spike and whirlwind all day long alongside many defensive Pokemon that it can switch around with. Contrast this with the same type, quite bulky Celesteela, who is excellent in VGC, not just for the greater immediacy of its offensive-defensive threat in Leech Seed, but because it can hit the opponent hard with Stab Heavy Slam, as well as the great coverage of Flamethrower. It also helps that Celesteela is bulky both physically and specially, as opposed to Scarm's easily exploited low special defense. One of the reasons the great defensive Pokemon in VGC tend to work is that their ability to take hits on both sides of the spectrum makes them more difficult to abuse in a 2-on-2 format. This is why Blissey and Chansey, minimized gimmicks aside, don't really work. Impenetrable on the special side, sure, but it doesn't take much effort to target their much lower physical bulk, and again, they can't effectively play to the strength of wearing the opponent down around and switching around with their great defensive teammates all game long. Passive damage does exist in VGC, certainly, and it is key, but as it is not the same type of hazard-littered landscape of singles, Clefable loses a ton of its effectiveness. In singles, it is one of the very best Pokemon to have in a long game, and even in shorter games, it thrives because it is uniquely able to constantly lay at full health with how it ignores Stealth Rock alone. Offensive plans tend to include how a Pokemon is 1-hit KO'd, 2-hit KO'd, and so on with Rocks Up, but Clefable completely stifles that. It is rare in being able to use its bulk to full effect, unbothered by having to start at 87.5 damage or other such thresholds that other walls have to take into account. However, in VGC, seeing as there are no hazards, this talent isn't unique. Pretty much everything is starting at full health when switching in. Additionally, just good enough bulk lets it get by in a singles format, but it's not so impressive that it has quite the same reach in doubles. It's not bad, but without the uniqueness of how it always starts at full, it bears less merit. Funnily enough, Clefable can be outclassed in VGC depending on the format by Clefairy, whose double-specific ability Friend Guard makes it an incredible partner in all manner of situations for teammates to abuse only taking 75 damage from opposing moves, especially huge in the fast-paced world of VGC, where KO thresholds cannot be micromanaged as they are in singles. This is relatively speaking, of course. Incineroar and Arcanine are far from bad Pokemon in singles. They are decidedly solid Pokemon in the lower tiers, both offensively and defensively, but they are lower tier nonetheless, and a far cry from standard play. The opposite of the way the catch-all Intimidator they most resemble in VGC, Landorus slotted just as comfortably into OU. However, Arcanine and especially Incineroar are incredible, defining VGC forces. Incineroar in particular having usage so ridiculous, it has driven certain renowned players to insanity. So what is it about the doubles format that makes these decent but flawed singles choices so utterly elite? Well, the obvious answer begins with the lack of Stealth Rock, which holds both back in spite of their solid viability in the singles format of Gen 7, whose VGC they got their start in. Even in Gen 8 and 9, the Stealth Rock issue manifests itself in a need to hold heavy-duty boots, an item that is just about necessary for their functioning in singles, yet is beautifully absent in doubles, letting them accentuate and embody their potential to the fullest through other items. Their incredible survivability in Gen 7 is a testament to the power of the pinch-healing berries to be certain, but it is power enabled by lack of rocks getting in the way for that nasty 25% they slash off upon entry. Even Incineroar's more offensively geared sets become more efficient in this vein. It can simply attack and switch, repeat, a luxury rarely afforded to it in singles. And indeed, that brings us to the main element of their excellence in VGC, Intimidate, which they can make the most of because they switch in and out with impunity to spam it repeatedly, not having to limit themselves through concerns with hazards, and receive the full effect of the attack drop as a result. Plus, because it's doubles, they are intimidating two Pokemon at once. Talk about defensive reach not just for themselves, but for the benefit of their teammates as well. It's the presence of their teammates that benefits them as well. While Arcanine and Incineroar are supporting them, the teammates are striking at the opponent, so the pressure is not completely on the Fires to necessarily take on what they're facing, as opposed to singles where they need to switch out again for such support. The teammate helping them out helps them expand what they can be used to take on because they're not doing so single-handedly. It helps that they both pack some superb utility that is not specific to doubles, but it is much more impactful there. The most obvious cases is Incineroar's Fake Out, which is one of the most game-changing moves in VGC, but both Pokemon also pack Snarl so as to weaken the special attack of both opposing Pokemon as well, further enhancing hit-taking abilities of both themselves and their teammates, and Incineroar took this to the extreme upon receiving Parting Shot. Though single target, the effect worked for both teammates nonetheless, especially since it gave Incineroar an opportunity to cycle back in for another Intimidate. Essentially, these Pokemon are able to become more than the sum of their parts in a way that the one-on-one singles format doesn't allow. And if you're ever wondered how Incineroar seems to counter literally everything in a 2-on-2 format, where defenses just like ye old Scarm Bliss don't work, that's basically why. Raichu is not a good singles Pokemon at all. It was a decent UU pick in Gen 1 for sure, and it dominated Gen 2 NU, shaping the tier in its image, where it was the best counter to itself, riding that wave all the way to a ban. However, in every gen afterwards, it is complete and utter junk, which is unfortunate because it has some tools that seem like they could be worthwhile. In Gen 3, all electric moves being special means it can wield basically a special electric double edge and volt tackle, being able to spam thunder level power with 70% accuracy traded in for 100% and the much preferable drawback of recoil. However, it's just too weak and frail to wield its solid base 100 speed as well as it would like. Base 100 speed, which is always nice, but becomes less impressive with each gen, which really serves to further drive the nail into Raichu's Cofagrigus, seeing as it's not getting the kind of buffs it needs. Oh sure, what it lost in special Volt Tackle during the transition to Gen 4's new physical special split, it gained in amazing new toys like Nasty Plot, Focus Miss, and Life Orb for that extra power kick, but it still wasn't enough. In VGC though, Raichu is a beacon of utility that serves as a key partner for one of the best Pokemon ever, meaning it's not just something that works in limited dex formats when all the better options are unavailable. Not at all. In fact, the opposite. Raichu works best on the big stage where everything is available. Its support capabilities are the stuff of dreams. First of all, it doesn't just have Fake Out, it's got a fast Fake Out. It's got one of the fastest Fake Outs in the game. In fact, only second to Weavile in the 2016 metagame. Fake Out is already such an amazing tool, as we've mentioned, so having the faster Fake Out is a huge advantage to having the fast-paced VGC environment. Not only in the restricted formats, of course, as Raichu dominated in 2016, but when you've got Xerneas, Primal Groudon, and Mega Rayquaza running around, being able to go first with the move only becomes more important. But Raichu is far from just a fake-out machine. Why does it pair so well with Kyogre in particular? Because of its Lightning Rod ability, which draws in all electric moves aimed at its teammates and has them thud uselessly into Raichu's immunity to them. Worse than uselessly actually, because they'll wind up giving Raichu a special attack boost to boot. Being able to not just nullify, but benefit from a teammate's electric weakness is excellent support for many Pokemon. And when it's King Kyogre, the benefits are just extraordinary. But that's still not all Raichu has to offer. It can wreak havoc on the opponent's game plan and create opportunities for its own team through the support move locking support of Encore. It has an untauntable Focus Sash breaking paralysis move in Nuzzle. It can break an opponent's Protect or Wide Guard with Feint, which also helps break sashes. Its move pool is so deep, it generally enables its teammates to incredible effect with whatever specific method the team requires. Of course, that's exactly the point. When it can help its teammates, it's immensely useful. When it's a solo act as in singles, there's not much to write home about. As an honorable mention, in a somewhat similar vein, there are many Follow Me Pokemon who are good in VGC but really bad in singles, except for Togekiss and Ogerpon, of course. Even the not fully evolved likes of Magmar and Electabuzz have thrived with it in VGC. That's how powerful Redirection is. Redirection is doubles exclusive, of course, but it doesn't mean that the redirectors necessarily must be bad in singles. Again, see Togekiss and Ogerpon. They just happen to be that way many a time. Completely overlooked in 1v1, invaluable in 2-on-2. Upon receiving speed boosts in Generation 5, Blaziken made history by so shattering OU as to become the first starter Pokemon banned. Game Freak must have liked the idea because ever since then, they've been buffing the newer starters more and more. It's not necessarily to the point of brokenness, but the new starters do seem to constantly reach higher levels of excellence than their previous gen counterparts. Unaware Skeledirge, Grassy Terrain Rillaboom, Intimidate Incineroar, and of course both Mega Charizards were quote-unquote new in their own way, but the overpowered stuff also kept coming, not just in Blaziken's continued brokenness in Gen 6 and 7, but in Gen 6 introducing the incredibly fast Omni-Stab Spikes machine to boot, Greninja, which got sent to Ubers upon receiving the Clefable-destroying Gunk Shot in Gen 6. Greninja then dominated OU in Gen 7, both with Protean and its new Battle Bond, receiving a form of KO-activated buff in Ash Greninja that would have surely been banned if it could immediately evolve just like a Mega Pokemon. Gen 8 then decided, you know what we need? Greninja V2, but we'll change the name of its Protean ability so nobody will notice. That's right, Cinderace has Libero, which is totally different, even though the effect is exactly the same. Right down to the way it dissected OU with speed alongside ridiculous power, both from getting stabbed on everything and from the way it could even change what it was weak to in a Proto-Terra kind of way. Cinderace was such a beast, it didn't just get itself banned from OU twice, in both the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. It got Libero and Protean nerfed in Gen Pokemon 9 to only change type to that of the first move used upon switching in. And one can only imagine how ferocious the Protean-bearing Meowscarada would be without this nerf. These Pokemon were too fast and too strong to handle in singles, one of them so much so that Game Freak changed the mechanics. How did they fare in doubles? They fell flat on their face. The problem with Blaziken, Greninja, and Cinderace is that they are glass cannons. They're fast glass cannons, yes, but that's still a skill set more attuned to the one-on-one nature of singles, where if Scar walls something, it walls something. But in doubles that doesn't get it very far because the walled Pokemon's teammates might easily dispatch it. These starters might be quite threatening to one Pokemon on the field, but their immense frailty, and in many cases, the fact that they might come short of the clean one-hit KO territory that they would need in order to compensate, means they don't wind up fulfilling their destructive potential. Indeed, as strong as they are, especially Blaziken, even Mega Blaziken for that matter, they are still not quite as auto-destructive as, say, a Mega Charizard Y, which is an incredibly high threshold, but that is the general area of strength you have to be near at least, if you're going to have that little defensive utility. The starter's defensive utility is next to nihil. Frailty combined with lack of particularly useful combinations of resistances in a 2-on-2 format is the most exploitable thing in the world. Even their great speed isn't going to regularly save them in a world of Fake Out, Protect, Choice Scarfers, Priority in general, and Spread moves. And sure, there are frail, fast Pokemon in VGC aplenty, but they're bringing impactful utility moves to the table. The starters can't match this, only really offering their glass cannon routine, and the cannon isn't sufficiently powerful or wide-reaching to prevent the regular shattering of the glass. And that's it. There are surely much more examples that could be given. Perhaps we will return to this video format in the future to explore how things like single-style suicide leads don't really work in VGC, but it's not just the fact that they dedicate themselves to hazards, but also the fact that you don't want to be sacrificing your Pokemon if you can help it in a 4v4 battle. Let us know what type of Pokemon you'd like to explore in such a video, whether it's singles Pokemon that don't work in doubles or the other way around, as well as what you thought of the Pokemon chosen for this video in the comments below. And if you want to watch a similar video, go check out our video called the Incineroar Theorem. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And thank you so much to our Platinum patrons. Thank you to Amphozenus, Alex Sable, Anthony Belval Renault, Bingleton, Daniel Isbeast, Funky, Glitcherton, Howl, Megamon VGC, Nurse Jake, Jack G, Pretzel SP, Spavoon, Skylaria, Soares and Croxon, Shiwei Miji, Stoneface Colin, Kiboflu for their major support of our videos. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.